Hi, this is Terri Wilson with Doing HR Differently, and today's topic is planning for your interview. The interview process is an exchange of information, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to engage, an opportunity to impress, and a decision making event. It's an exchange of information because questions will be asked, and those questions are meant to determine whether or not there's enough of a match to go forward. It's an opportunity to learn because those questions are giving you information. It's an opportunity to engage because both you and the interviewer are in a conversation. And part of that conversation, the unspoken part, is really what is it going to be like to work with you? It's an opportunity to impress because you want to make a positive impression. You want to make an impression so that when you're not in the room, people still think of you. Whether it's a week down the road or 2 weeks down the road, or maybe months down the road, the job that you've applied for has already been filled, but we still want that person in this organization. So, again, every interview is an opportunity to impress. It's also a decision making event. The hiring company, the interviewer will decide whether or not you go on in the process, whether or not you get a job offer, or whether or not the process ends for you. It's a decision making process for you because do you want to go on? Do you want the offer? Do you want it to end? So let's talk about all the components that need to go into you preparing for your interview. You see this picture of all these beautiful ingredients. They're beautiful. Each one is beautiful. But when you combine them together into a really good meal, if you're eating that meal, you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I might not know all the different components, but it's amazing. Well, preparing for your interview is like that. You're going to be looking at each of these ingredients, but you're going to put it together in such a way that the interviewers will say, that was an awesome interview. We want that person. So let's talk about how you do that. Let's focus on first who. Know who you'll be interviewing with. Is it one individual? Is it several individuals? What levels of the organization? Is your hiring manager in that? Is this a 1, 2, or 3 step interview process? Who are you going to be interviewing with? What? What are the key points you want to share? This is key to preparing. You are the keeper of your information. You know what you've done. You know what you want to present. You should know what you want to present and how you want to present it. And then how? Identify the experience you want to give interviewers. This is really important because you get to determine that. I want them to have a good experience with me. Okay, well, then how you answer those questions is important. How you engage them in conversation is important. Your smile, your body language, all of that plays in together. You also want to determine how you want to end the interview. The interview is going to end, but you get to determine how you want to end it. Follow up. You want to follow up after every interview and you want to be timely. So on each slide you'll see an HR tip, and that HR tip is for the interview actually. So this tip is your lack of preparation will be evident in the interview. So if you don't do these things, it's going to be evident when you're in the interview process. So let's look a little bit deeper into who's interviewing you. You want to do your homework. In our previous session, asking the right questions to avoid choosing the wrong company, we give you a whole list of questions that you can ask. So you want to do your homework on the industry, on the company, and on the interviewers. And there are many different ways you can do that. A very easy way is LinkedIn, and there's no excuse for you not to know about the person through LinkedIn unless they don't have a profile. But even if they don't have a profile, you can find other people on LinkedIn who work for that company and learn something. Find something of interest about the person to mention or ask about in the interview. You're now personalizing it, and that's important. Here's a great suggestion: connect with a few current employees before the interview for insight. And here's my example. I was interviewing for a position, and I thought to find the person who had the position previously. Contacted them on LinkedIn. We met, had a great discussion, and I went for the interview. Well, that person had called ahead of my interview and pretty much told the hiring manager, you need to pay attention to this person. She's awesome. And so when I got there, they asked how I knew the person. I said, we had a conversation And they said, well, they just vouched for you. I've never seen anything like that happen before in my life. It can happen. And quite honestly, you never know what you're going to get when you contact a few current employees. At a minimum, you've made some new contacts, but you'll probably get some insights that will help you in the interview process. And here's my HR tip: do not send a LinkedIn request to the interviewers before your interview or after. Just don't put them in a position where they have to say no to you. Let's talk about know your targets. Identifying the key points you want to share is critical. You have knowledge, skills, and experience. And there's also a personal aspect of you that you want to share. But remember, you get to determine what you want to share. Nobody has that information but you. You want to have clear examples and use the STAR method when asked questions. What was the situation? What was the task? What actions did you take? And what were the results? This is better known as behavioral interviewing. This is really important for you to take your knowledge, skills, and experience and put it in this format. When you're asked a question, and the question could sound like, tell me about a time when, they're going to be looking for the STAR format. What was the situation, task, action, and results? You can't do it on the spot. You have to think about it ahead of time. You also need to be prepared to infuse your own key points into the conversation if needed. Remember, you're the person who knows what you want to share. So whether it's asked or not, you need to be prepared to insert it into the conversation. And then you want to use your key points in your close and a shortened version of it in your follow up. So here's my HR tip: bringing notes to the interview and taking notes during the interview is impressive. Why? Because the notes that you bring in says you've done some homework, and there are certain things that you want to make sure you say. Taking notes during the interview is impressive because we're talking about something that's really important to you. Can you take it on your phone? Absolutely, but it's better to take it and handwrite it. Why? Because on your phone, you could be doing anything. You could be recording the interview. So, really, really important. You want to plan the experience. Knowledge, skills, and work experience is the minimum requirement. That's how you got the interview, because you met the minimum. But anything beyond that, you have to bring in the interview. You want to plan and practice the generic and challenging questions you'll be asked. So we all know what the generic questions are. Tell me about yourself. That's a wide open question. You can go anywhere with that. But because you've thought about it, you know you can't go everywhere. You need to go very narrow, leading them down the path that you want them to go down. And when you run into a challenging question and you don't have an answer, you can stall a little bit and say, that's a really good question. Let me think about it. Take 10 seconds, think about it. But you can do a stall. And here's my example of that. In an interview, I was asked, tell me 3 mistakes you think managers make. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, oh man, they make so many. How do I limit it to 3? But I thought, it's a really great question. Let me think. I took about 10 seconds. I listed the 3 things. I saw smiles on their faces. And then I said, you know what? That was a really good answer. Let me write it down. So I wrote it down in my notebook and we all laughed. And that was great because it like really broke the ice. You want to identify the questions you will ask. Again, go back and listen to asking the right questions to avoid choosing the wrong companies. You have a list of questions that you can choose from, but you have to walk in the interview with questions. Do not have a question. That is just not going to be, that's going to be a deal killer. Identify what you want the interviewers to know, think, and feel. This is better known as fit. This is never talked about in the interview, but is definitely talked about after the interview. You can have all the knowledge, skills, and work experience, but unless the interviewer feels like you're the right fit, you're not going to get the job. And the right fit really is answering the question, what is it like to work with you? You also need to practice. Do not wing it. Even if this is the 10th interview you've had this week, you need to give this company and this interviewer or group of interviewers your attention. Practice before you go. Finally, you always want to be you. No bait and switch. And here's my example. I like to see people at least 3 times. The first time you make an impression. The second time, usually somebody else shows up. And then I need the third time to figure out, are you one or are you two? Sometimes the second time you show up the same way. So I don't need to see you a third time. But if you're always you, that's who I'm hiring. I don't want to hire a really good interviewee. I want to hire the right person for the job. And in order for me to do that, I need to see who you are. So the tip here is fit is critical and usually unspoken. And because you're planning the experience, you can plan the fit conversation. Answer that question. What is it like to work with me? You also want to make a lasting impression. You want to dress to impress. You want to stand out yet fit in. So, an example of this is knowing the company, knowing the industry that you're interviewing for. If you were interviewing for a surfboard company, would you go in a suit and tie? Probably not. Would you go in shorts? Probably not. So, you want to stand out, but you also want to fit in. You want to practice using your notes so that you're comfortable. You don't want to go in and be flipping through notes because everybody's watching everything in an interview. You want to practice managing the interview to your benefit. Remember, you know your key points that you want to make. And so you want to manage the interview, the conversation, so that it stays on target the way you want it to go. And then you want to plan your close. And you can use this formula. What you've learned, the key points you made, the key points you didn't make, how you can help the company, and why you want the position. Again, if you do your work ahead of time, you'll have this answer. And here's your HR tip. Don't make the interviewers pull it together because they won't. If you don't pull it together for them, they won't pull it together. So let's follow all the way through. Send a personal follow up message. Include something unique or relevant. Include additional information about yourself. Reiterate your desire to join the company. End with a question and your contact information. And then follow up within 5 days. So, as a hiring manager, I can tell you I pay attention to the follow up messages I get, whether it's email or a handwritten note. I pay attention to when it comes and I pay attention to who sends it. And I am really disappointed when I don't get one because you've just lost an opportunity with me. So I'm happy to take an email. I'm happy to take handwritten, but I need to get one and it needs to be timely. So the HR tip is be timely, same day, no later than next day. So to bring it all together, interviews are an exchange of information. Planning for the interview will increase your interview confidence and conversion rate. You determine what information you want to share, how to present yourself, how to demonstrate fit, and the interview process doesn't begin or end with the interview. It begins with that first touch point and that last touch point. The ultimate goal is you want to get an offer, even if you don't want to accept it. Why? Because every interview is an opportunity to hone your skills. And if you get an offer, that says that you've hit everything right and that your conversion rate is going up. Wouldn't it be awesome? Every opportunity, interview opportunity you had, you got a job offer. That says that you know how to interview really well. And then you have many choices of where to work. So your goal is to get an offer even if you don't want it. So this is Terri from Doing HR Differently. We hope this has been helpful and you found some things that you can do better to prepare for your interviews. We love doing this work. If you have topics that you'd like for us to cover, please text us or email me and we will put it together and put it out there for you. Again, we can guide and support you in your career. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon.